Mazda MX5 Miata is a car that is loved by many. It's sporty, it's reliable, and they're generally pretty inexpensive. But people tend to gloss over the cons of these cars. They're not perfect cars, and there are some things that downright suck about them. Today, I want to share 5 of these things with you and go over 5 things that I hate about my turbo Mazda MX5 Miata. Before I get into my list though, let us know down below why you hate the Miata. Number 1 on my list of why I hate the Miata is the car community that talks about these cars. Now, a lot of people love to make fun of Miatas, say they're girls' cars, say they're hairdressers' cars, say they're slow cars, say they're convertible so they would never buy one, and the list goes on and on. And let me tell you, most of these people have never driven a Miata, let alone been in a Miata, so it's easy for them to say that. In general, people either really love these cars or they really hate them. So if you're gonna get one of these cars, or if you have one of these cars, be prepared for some of the hate that people are gonna toss your way. But you get over it, these cars are absolutely great. And you just have to not listen to these people. It's really uncalled for, because if you like the car that you have, that's all that matters. Of course, all of this is not necessarily the car's fault, but let's get into some of the things that are the car's fault that kinda suck. Number 2 on this list is a lot of small reasons that add up to one big fact. Mazda MX-5 Miatas, especially earlier ones, tend to suck on long trips. Here's the reasons why. The pedal position in these cars tends to give you leg cramps on longer drives that are an hour plus. These things are set up great for spirited driving and heel towing, but as soon as you have to go on a long drive, keep your foot in the same spot. My gas pedal foot always gets cramped up and it gets old. Also, since we're in the interior, these things have a lack of cup holders, and the built-in cup holders that go in the center console are an absolute joke. To fix that, I do have a different one here that I'll have linked below that works pretty well, but from the factory, pretty much a lack of cup holders. Also, these cars have a pretty severe lack of storage space, and also they're obviously a 2-seater, which means if you're with another person, you can't bring another dog or something like that with you too easy, because there's just not really room for it. These cars also don't ride particularly comfortable from the factory, and as soon as you start modifying them like mine, they get even worse. Also, on the inside, these things tend to be pretty loud once you get up to some higher speeds, and when you're going over bumps and things from lower speeds. So it's definitely not a luxurious car, and you should be ready for that. When I'm doing longer road trips and my back hurts and my feet hurt and I'm uncomfortable, yes, I hate it, but as soon as I'm doing spirited driving or taking it on track, I do love this car. Now let's get into the next one. Number 3 on this list, which is one of the most annoying things about these cars, is something that has to do with the engine. And that is the oil filter location. Now, in my opinion, these cars are near perfect because they're super easy to work on, they're super reliable, but every time I have to do an oil change on this, it just annoys me. Let me show you where the filter is. So here we are going in on the passenger side under the intake manifold, and that black thing under there with that orange stripe is the oil filter. Now, this isn't absolutely horrible. You could get your hand on it, but as soon as the previous owner over tightened it or did something like that, it's a pain. Also, the way this thing is located sideways like this, you're guaranteed to drip oil all over your subframe and all over your floor, and it's nearly impossible to not do that. I mean, it's not really a big deal, but every time I have to do an oil change on this car, it is just slightly annoying, and in my opinion, it's one of the worst things about this car. Which is, of course, saying something, because it's really not that big of a deal. Reason number 4 that I used to hate my Miata is the fact that these things are freaking slow. This one's a 93, so it was a 1.6 liter, and these only made about 100 wheel horsepower from the factory. Of course, they're light cars, but when you're really ripping on these on back roads or on tracks, most cars are gonna absolutely smoke you in a straight line, and of course, you never wanna be the slow guy. I personally went ahead and fixed this problem on my car by turbocharging it with a budget setup that cost me just a little over $1,000. Now, this car is about 200 wheel horsepower. It will keep up with S2000s and things like that on track, and it is an absolute blast. Going back to number 1, the hardcore track guys absolutely hate when this Miata on slicks is keeping up with their much more expensive, much more prestigious cars. Now, with that said, I'm actually sort of on the fence about hating Miatas for being underpowered. Every time I get back in a stock one, I do have a good time, and I do think it's super fun to be flat out all the time, revving the thing to the moon, and still having a blast. That said, let us know down below what you think the perfect amount of power is for a Miata. The last one on the list, coming in at number 5, and by the way, I do have a bonus at the end, so stick around, is just how small and low these cars are. Of course, that's what makes these things so appealing and so fun, because they're lightweight and very tossable on track and on back roads, but it does come with some major cons. One of those is that when you're driving at night, almost every car is going to have their headlights above your trunk, which means that their low beams are going to feel like high beams to you in the car. You're going to get their light coming straight into your car, reflecting off your mirrors, and in my opinion, it is pretty annoying to be followed by almost anything in a Miata at night. The other downside of these things being so small is visibility from other drivers. These are small cars, which means that they're kind of hard to see on the road compared to almost everything else. This means that if someone's not paying attention and they go to merge into you, there's a much higher chance of a collision if you're driving a Miata versus if you're driving a bigger, more visible vehicle. This just means that you have to be extra aware when you're driving these cars to avoid these situations. And finally, a little bonus one here at the end of this list. I hate that Miata prices are going so high. Of course, it's good that I have this Miata already and I could enjoy it, but prices on parts have been going up steadily, prices on cars have been going up steadily, and it's been getting harder to get a good deal. It kills me every time I see an NA Miata for 8 to 10 grand, knowing that I got this one for just $1,000. With all of that said, that's going to wrap up my list of the 5 things that I hate about the Mazda MX5 Miata. This was actually quite a difficult video to make because, quite frankly, I really love these cars and there's not that much that I truly dislike about them. Let us know down below if there's anything that you hate about the Mazda Miata. Don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and I hope you stick around for the next one. Take care.